time crash, but it did. We're good.
We're back.
So, Spencer, you ready?
I am.
Jason, you ready?
Ready.
John, you ready?
Ready.
Ben, you ready?
Ready.
All right.
That wasn't Ben.
Yeah. Filled this show full of lies.
Oh, crap. You know what? Because of the new content creator thing, I forgot to change the stream
See?
name.
He
Shoot,
wasn't
we're
ready.
Not ready.
This
I lied.
other
I lied.
person stepped in who was not ready.
Yeah. The real
The new dashboard is a nightmare.
It is, isn't it?
It's so bad. It was fine the way it was. It did everything that you needed to do. Everybody knew where everything was. You're like, nope.
Then
There
you
you
had
go.
to go
Gotta
and futz with
We
it.
got
It's
it.
updated. Okay, everybody, to make sure that we're on the right thing, hit refresh. We'll wait a second.
Yeah.
You know, they're
If you're,
getting an
if you're
ad
here
if they do
right
that.
now,
There's
and we
no
didn't start
way you're
yet,
going to know that
you
Bell's
might not know. You might confuse one of us for Bell.
It's
Mhm.
me.
All right, so that should be good. So with that, welcome to Azeroth Roundtable, episode 350. My name is Ben Bumhofer. It is Friday. It is getting really close to our super spectacular holiday special that has absolutely nothing to do with the holidays. But John and I get to geek out about stuff. But that's in like 2 weeks. But for now, with me as always is John Jagger. How's it going, John?
Hello, Ben. That was a lot of information you gave in your intro, but I guess we're happy to have it, and we're happy to have you. But we're also happy to have two guests.
I thought you were going to continue with that.
Nope, that was
so-
a secret baton pass to you. I maybe should have indicated that in some way. It was going to be back and forth. There was going to be some wit and witticism between us. But no, you can go.
Okay, it's okay. We'll fix this in post. Okay.
Right.
John, you're right. We do have two fantastic people with us this week. Some of my favorite people to talk to, actually.
That's right, Ben. We have Spencer and Jason on the show this week.
Somebody had to intro us.
See how I picked up on that baton
That was
passing,
great.
Ben? That was great. That was
great.
pro. We got
You
real
need a
good.
physical
You guys
baton. You need a
both
physical
really-
baton that you pass between your squares and your.
trying to avoid doing the guest intro.
Oh, no.
It was a game of chicken. But hey, congrats on 350, guys. That's a big
that's
round
crazy.
number.
Oh shoot! Is this our 350th
Yeah.
episode?
Yeah, I didn't
I mean, that's
realize
what Ben just said, so I haven't been counting them individually, but
yeah, I didn't realize it until I just updated our info. I'm like, oh, it's 350. What do you know? Who cares?
Well, we're celebrating by being here tonight.
Yeah, 350. Woo! So,
I mean, you
wow,
know,
huh?
it's worth commemorating. You
Yeah.
know, that's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears getting 349 other of these thingers out into the world. So
Less
Especially
less
tears.
than you'd think.
Well, if
Yeah.
you think about the amount of weeks it takes to get 350 weekly episodes out,
yeah, even if you just
Yeah.
fart them out once a week, it's still a really long time. So
That's true. We have
1 month
consistently been doing this for a time.
Yes. 350 weeks, one might say.
Consistency.
give or take, yeah.
Consistency. Consistently.
Gosh, if you want to talk about consistency, though, I got to tell you, due to some incredibly good, structured discipline on my part, I have finished one of my goals before the next patch. And it's something
Nice.
I didn't think was ever going to happen, but it did. And that is, I am now exalted with Mechagon.
Hey,
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations.
you did it, man. You powered
Make
through it.
friends.
Yeah. All it took was me like almost clawing out my eyes every single day while I had that anniversary buff. It was great.
Man, you're really harshing on Mechagon in a real sad way. Mechagon is great, although I'm actually still not exalted with Mechagon, which I think some people takes to prove that I actually secretly didn't like it best, because I am exalted with Najatar.
Well,
It's
Well,
almost like
with
it's
with
easier.
Mechagon, you gotta go find stuff if you want to get rep. You don't just have it, right? There's no
you can't just solve puzzles. Like, you can't just do fun
yeah,
laser
there's
games
there's
and,
no
you know.
world quest. There's no emissaries, even though you get like 800 rep a day. from the daily activity. But yeah, you have to kind of seek it out a little bit more. So that's reasonable. I mean, I'm more in your camp, John. Like I'm mostly pro Mechagon, although I was working on the zone meta achievement for a while, and I finished that up a few weeks ago. And
Congrats.
thank you. Yeah, that's the wheel mount thing. It's a pretty cool mount,
Mhm.
and but man, that thing that started to shift my opinion about that zone. That
Yeah.
zone meta was brutal. So
You found a
uh,
way to make it unfun.
Yeah.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course. As soon as I finished it, they're like, "Hey, we're making this account wide, by the way." So,
Well, that's good.
so that was great time.
Yeah, I mean,
Perfect.
Mechagon for me, the barrier is, and the Horde don't suffer from this as much because they actually have a shortcut that gets them there quickly. It's the flight path, to be honest. It's the 3.5-minute flight path
You
to get
actually
from
have to take a flight path?
oh yeah, to get from my hub city out there. Yeah, which is just not great. I mean, you can craft a teleportation device. You can do that and teleport your way out there, but that requires you to go there in order to craft it, in order to get the resources, in order to do that. And I'm not that motivated to go and do it. You know, like I am exalted because I had to for all the essences and all that kind of bonus stuff, but it was more for the fact that I wanted to get my repeatable Paragon bag. That is the one bag that I'm like, just, it's off there in the corner. I'm not going to deal with it because flying
It took
there
me
sucks.
forever to get the blueprint for the teleportation device, and once I got it, I made like 100 stack of them. I'm like,
So
okay,
wait, hold on. You get the blueprint for it, and it's a one-time use thing.
it's a consumable.
It's
Yeah,
consumable, yeah.
I think like 2 crates make like 5 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
yeah.
the worst.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. It's better than not having it. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
take what I
but
can
I
get.
mean, the Horde literally has a way to teleport there pretty much. I mean, not to.
Mhm.
Every now and then I was like, oh gosh, I gotta fly off the top of
Fly
this
to the
pyramid.
dog.
All the way down to the dog. What a hard
the
life
trade-off.
I have.
That is
Well,
the
I mean,
trade-off.
I think that's probably just that's a little bit of compensation for having to live in Dazaralor for 2 years. So
Yeah.
Oh, that place is
Um,
great.
But
Everything's
I
fine
love
there.
it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm not really gonna have to go back to Mechagon too much anymore, really. So I think it's a trade-off I'll take. I'll take Borealis and having to have an inconvenience to get to Mechagon.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, apparently.
I agree,
like,
Ben.
what
That's a
words?
good point, and you should say it
Post-Panda.
again.
So the as someone who has an alliance and a horde tune, Borealis is freaking confusing to get to places sometimes. It's like, okay, I can take a flight point to like 3 different flight points in the entire city, which is great, but sometimes when I was, before I had flying and everything, trying to get from point A to point B on a ground mount was
Yeah.
like confusing as hell, because it's like, okay, I
Mhm.
need to cross over there, but the only way to get there is to swim, and there's no way up, so I have to go all the way over there to do something. And then there's like, okay, but if I go up on the wall, I should be able to go all the way across, but there's no connecting thing. So, yeah, I'll take
Yeah.
Dazzlor any day of the week. 'cause-
Here's
the city hub is all in one spot, though. All the other places you're going to they're like gameplay questing type spaces mostly. It's not like, well, the portals are here, and then you have to take a flight path to get to your boat and the other vendors and stuff. So I don't know. I guess
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
all the profession trainers are nearby inside the main hub. There are banks in the main hub. Your not auction house, but your portals are in the main hub. Your tables in the main hub. If you want to go to Boda when you're doing that raid, it's right there. Like all that was really right accessible, and the PvP thing was just down a staircase to get to the PvP area
True.
and the brawlers arena and that kind of stuff. The stuff that was farther away was like the pet vendors and some obscure food vendors, and you had to fight your way to get to the black market auction house. Those are like the only things
oh, that makes sense.
that were like I don't know. Those are the only things that were trickier to get to.
All
that
right.
I've found so far.
I gotta weigh in on this because I like both those cities.
Sure.
Because
All right.
Oh, they're both great. I will say.
I like them
aesthetically-
both aesthetically a lot. Yeah.
aesthetically speaking, I'm maybe less into the pyramid, but they won me over pretty quick with that, honestly. That was my biggest takeaway from this expansion was going, oh, great, the Horde got stuck with this stupid troll expansion. I guess it's going to be pyramids and dinosaurs. And then, honestly, within like 10 minutes into the expansion, I was like, hell yeah, I'm changing my transmog. I want to look like I belong here. This place is the best. I love this place. I got really into it. And I already liked the idea of a big pirate city. Like, that seemed cool. I was into
Yeah.
that. They didn't
I
have
love
to
the idea
sell
of
me on
living-
that. Here's the problem. That song that plays on repeat in the Alliance City gets stuck in my head terribly. All I was doing, I logged in because I boosted a character, an Alliance tune, so that I could work on unlocking things over on the Alliance side. And all I wanted to do was get all my abilities in order and get all the moves, because I basically made a copy of my own rogue, just,
Yeah,
Alliance.
that's what you do.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to learn another class. I'm just going to play rogue. So I was just getting everything exactly as it was on my other tune, and I was, alt-tabbing between a screenshot of my action bars and everything in this character, just
Again,
going,
that's what you do.
and the music was just playing in the background, and by the time I was done, I went to bed, and I couldn't sleep because the song was just still playing in my head, and it was a real problem.
Just Control M, John.
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
what is...
real life control?
Control M, and then the music goes away, and then you can
does
sleep.
it? I should probably
Yes.
do that.
Oh, I go into the thing and click the thing off.
But the
if
thing
want
is,
to
do
do
that
I
too.
don't realize I don't like it, because it's good music. It's like big,
Yeah, it is, yeah.
heroic, like awesome sounding music. But then when I walk away from the computer, and all of a sudden I'm just sitting there going, oh no, it's still there. It hasn't gone away. I can't control M in real life.
Mm.
Well, okay.
Well-
Would you prefer that, or the actual Pirates of the Caribbean song playing just constantly on loop?
Maybe the Pirates.
I mean, you could
theme?
sing
Yeah, I
along.
know. Pirates is pretty good. I'm
Yeah.
kind of leaning that direction too.
I've gone on a lot of rides of Pirates of the Caribbean, sometimes even in a row. I think I could survive that. I might be okay.
So when I made my Horde character, what I found actually was the most frustrating moment for me was when I was trying to level up cooking on my Horde character, and the cooking reagent vendor is at the docks, and the cooking trainer is at the top of the temple. And I was like, who designed that? Because the fact that I have to figure out what I need, fly down, buy up everything I need, fly back up, cook near the person, then train the new stuff, and then figure out what I need, fly back down, pick up the stuff I need, fly back up, was just dumb. Like, whoever
Look,
designed
man,
that, they failed
How
that one.
committed to your cooking training are you? Okay,
Apparently,
That's really
right?
What it's about. It's
Exactly.
about the trainer is really making sure that this is where you're supposed to be. That you really want this.
The cooking trainer and cooking reagent vendor in Borealis is literally staring at each other. They are directly across from each other. You just walk between them. It's
I
much
watched
easier.
Gordon Ramsay climb a mountain for ingredients. All right, you can.
No, he did that for millions of dollars and ingredients.
Fair. It's fair.
True.
It's true.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always weird when they put things like that, in capital cities or hub cities or whatever, where it's like, okay, we need to make sure that you can train your engineering stuff here. But if it's an Orgrimmar, you have to go all the way to 3 other places in order to get to an anvil and a forge in order to actually train this.
Yep.
So, when you're leveling and you don't have flying or anything, and you don't even have a mount, it is fun.
Yep.
I like to imagine that the WoW development team has internally factionized, and that there are now Horde and Alliance devs, and they are allowed, when developing, to make a set number of changes for the other side's stuff.
Or
So-
they make the Horde devs develop the Alliance content and vice versa.
Yeah, but you can only do so much, so they have to get in the little
Okay.
punches where they can. So one's like, all right, well, we're gonna have to get to Mechagon, and the Horde's like, we've got a sweet teleport, we'll get you right there. Alliance is like us too, and Horde goes, nope, we want to use one of our points, whatever they
Yeah.
call it. They're like, we're getting rid of that teleporter. You're gonna have
So
to
is-
fly there.
This is why the Alliance always has a poop quest, but the Horde doesn't.
Yep. Horde always vetoes the poop quest. And then in response, the Alliance developers were like, all right, I hope you like going up a pyramid for your cooking reagents. We're putting those all the way at the bottom. I hope you enjoy having a faction with no chefs on it.
Yeah.
Except in the Great Seal, there's this giant. Oh no, wait, no, down. That's right. That's where the giant thing with the giant egg is. Like, there's. Okay, so, first day, that Battle for Azeroth comes out, I get to Dazzalore. I'm like, oh, this place is huge. How am I ever going to find anything? And then I spent 3 hours just exploring every nook and cranny, thinking that this was the greatest hub city in the entire world of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is great. There's every race is represented in some way. There's bad guys here for some reason. This is cool. And I'm like, this is amazing. And now I'm like, okay. I fly directly to my ship and fly directly back, and I'm kind of good. The scrapper, I'm an alchemist. I'll never use that. There's no reason to, because I don't get enough gear to get the unobtainium that you get or whatever it's called. So I don't buy gear that way.
Yeah.
So I'm just all like, cool. I've got everything I need. The Great Seal's broken because questing, and this is great. I'm happy. Stay up with the portal room and Bane, who's probably still just standing up there by that initial map.
Yeah, he's still there. He's doing what he does.
Yeah.
It is weird, though, kind of the way the illusion falls over the course of an expansion. And it's kind of sad because, you know, I was in the same boat. I was like, I'm never going to learn this place. It's so big. And I did the same thing you did, Ben, where I was running around. I was like, what's in here? And there were a lot of moments of like, oh gosh, where does this tunnel go? Oh, it goes to a whole questing area. Where does this tunnel go? It goes to a weird dead end. There's nothing in here. I wonder what this is going to be, you know? And then by the time we're now at the end of the expansion, I'm like, there's like 3 places. It's a really big city, but there's like 3 spots.
Well, they had to make it
Yeah.
big because they had the plans of making it a raid, right? It was that's the
Mhm.
other factor that goes into Dazarlor versus Borealis, is Borealis was in a raid. So Dazarlor they had to make large because they needed people to actually have room for encounters.
True.
as well.
I didn't actually think about that.
Well, interesting on that factor when you're designing a city for sure.
It's kind of sad that we're not going to have this texture in Shadowlands. Like, we're going back to a unified hub city, which I prefer. I think the best expansions have had unified hub cities. So I'm looking forward to that for Shadowlands, but we will not have these quirks about the different faction capitals that we like and dislike and compare to each other. So that's the only downside, is that we don't have these weird faction-specific gripes. We'll all have the same gripes.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is what is going to change with 8.3 visually in all these cities, because I you know, one of the things you really remember from Legion is being able to look up in the sky and see Argus, right, was suddenly like the big thing that came in with Legion, and actually being able to change the world in that way kind of made a big deal with 8.3 coming in. So
kinda
or
missed
7.3, and now it'll be 8.3. So I'm kind of curious if we're going to have any changes to our world when that patch comes in that are really noticeable.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll just contain that stuff to the 2 new zones we'll be hanging out in, or if there'll be something spread a little bit farther out. I mean, they started doing some cool stuff with skyboxes over the last couple expansions, and then apparently they decided that was like a good way to go for the entire hook of an expansion. So
Yeah. I'm curious though, like the things that the Fallen Lines, you guys talk about Bane being up inside the map room, like will he still be there after the events that have taken place that we know about? Is that going to influence anything? Like,
I would assume so, because, I mean, a lot of crap kind of went down with Bane.
Yeah, he's just gonna be there.
Yeah.
He's never gonna
This is-
stop.
It's because it's his map. He wants to make sure no one writes on it or anything.
okay. Well, I mean, fair enough. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
It's his pride and joy.
So, okay, I was thinking about it. Is the skybox kind of, or the idea of the skybox changing kind of, you know, jump-started a little bit of creativity in my mind.
mhm, mhm.
Okay.
And I figured out how it's going to change. So,
It,
thanks
it's
to...
not going to change in the way that we saw in the cinematic, which
No,
involves the.
it-
Okay, all right.
it's going to be slightly different.
Okay.
Thanks to the map that's behind Jason right now, which podcast listeners, it's Azeroth.
Yeah.
I was looking at it very closely, and I realized, one, how we're going to heal Azeroth and get the sword out, as well as what's going to happen in 8.3.
Okay.
We can't pull the sword out, so we're going to get a whole bunch of heroes. We're going to jump on top of the hilt and keep jumping on it to push it all the way through. And that end point, that point of the sword is going to pop up right between the Kultiris and Zandalar. It's just going to pop up, just go right through the entire Azeroth. That's how we're going to get that sword out. You can see a giant blade sticking up in the air for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna float out there. Why don't we just flush it down the maelstrom?
Here's what we do. We get a
That door seems gonna
giant
be really
space
bad.
tube, and we light a candle on the far side of it.
Ah,
The pressure sucks the sword right out and into outer
gotcha, yeah.
space.
I thought we'd just use it as a straw, and Illidan would come back, and he'd be ginormous from whatever adventures he's been on, and he just sucked the sword out.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what happens when you join the Pantheon. Is just you get big.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
He's swole now.
yeah. That's it.
Swollen. Exactly. I don't know.
I like that we're
Seriously.
really trying to figure out how to get this sword out. This is a real problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of the whole thing that we're doing here.
Do you heal
I think
the
they're
herb
gonna
you
I think they're gonna
ground
plant a tree, and the tree's just gonna grow around the sword, and we'll have another world tree there.
Yeah,
That'll be where the world
planting
tree is.
a world tree at a massively corrupted site has
Yeah,
never worked
right.
out poorly
It's
before
gonna
in
be
this
fine.
game.
It's gonna be
So
fine.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, the Night Elves will live anywhere, so.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
can
pretty
burn
much,
it down later
they
if
don't-
it's a problem.
yeah, it's,
And if it burned hot enough, it would melt the sword, and that solves the problem too.
Hey, true.
Yeah.
We get
then
a
we get,
lot
like,
it's
an
of.
already
Serenade.
kind of like on fire or something. So I don't know. I don't think
I
that would
saw
really
this in Breaking Bad. We get a lot of etch-a-sketches. And we just break them down, and then we light it on fire. I think that's what Walter White did, and I think it worked.
Oh, okay.
Oh, how about magnets?
I don't know
How do
those
they work?
Yeah, really.
There's a real race between Jason and I to that joke.
just desperate for it.
We got to get there. We got to do
Kids, if you don't get that one, go look up internet memes from about 8 years ago, and
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
it.
then-
And then realize how timely and on the pulse we are.
yes,
Or go
we're
to
with it.
Tolbrad and look for dailies. Because that's right. There's a daily in Tolbrad called magnets. How do they work?
Oh wow, that's a
Bam.
really interesting way to date how untimely that reference is. If it's
Yeah.
in
It is,
Barad,
yeah.
that's like 8-9 years ago now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That reference was Tolbarad old.
right. The sad thing is that actually means something to me.
It
Like
does,
I
it
can, I
does.
can mark the
Yeah,
past
I can date it,
time
yeah.
by you saying that.
I had one of my old teammates from a raid team linked me a video of us fighting. What boss was it? Some of the bosses inside Blackrock Foundry, and I had that moment where I was like, "That was like 5 years ago." oh my god!
Oh, man.
Oh.
It's hard to believe that Warlords was actually like that far ago.
That
now.
was a long time
Like,
ago.
Pandaria was pretty long. Like,
Yeah,
it was a long
7
time
years
ago
ago.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like
Real
almost
weird.
half of Warcraft ago.
Yep. Yeah, Pandaria's at the midpoint for a while at this moment. During 2020, Pandaria release will be the midpoint of the game's existence.
That's weird.
I don't really know how I feel about that now that I
Yeah.
said it out loud.
Well, you put the pandas in the middle. That makes sense, honestly, to me. If I was sketching out an overall timeline, that's where I'd put the pandas, right in the middle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, you know,
Okay.
that way you could space out the whole rest of the photo or whatever wherever you need them in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Later, when
And-
they
and
do
that's
the
right.
official timeline, there would just be pre-pandas and post-pandas, which
Mm-hmm.
will be confusing because
Ah.
it's PP for both.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways.
Well, you could do before pandas. You could do before and after, right? So you could do BP and AP. is
Yeah.
what you could go. With.
I like
Yeah.
it. Yeah, it's less, doesn't
That's
make you
much
think
But
of...
AP means something else lately, so
I mean, they're getting rid of that, so it's fine.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Hey, you know what? You just made me so happy. You made me realize there's going to be a time where artifact power doesn't matter
It's
anymore.
going away, man. It's going away. Probably
know.
about 12
I-
months
I-
away, but it's
I
going
guess-
away.
I guess I'll have to find some other game to play.
You mean like Warcraft 3? That thing
Well,
that's
I
supposed
guess,
to be out
yeah, I
sometime in
mean-
the next week and a half?
Yeah, I'm contractually obligated to get a copy of it at some
Oh,
point.
they
Yeah.
made a third one of those?
They did,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
A third Warcraft.
Imagine that.
Which
Curious as to
war
where
is
that is.
this?
The third one.
Oh,
Actually.
okay, yeah.
Wait,
That
wait,
just
let me- let me-
wrapped up. If my achievements are to be believed.
Let me check the wiki. No, that was
No,
that was the
fourth
fourth
one.
Oh,
We
my
could have
bad.
used you in the third war. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay.
This
yeah.
is a prequel. A prequel to
So,
World of Warcraft.
what are we doing in the next expansion? Seeing as we haven't unified, but apparently the war's over.
Well, we have bigger problems. We have
We have
bigger
bigger
fish to fry.
problems. It's always the bigger. It's never. It's like a shaky alliance. Or, I suppose alliance probably shaky like truce because we have bigger problems to solve.
It sounds like nothing's changing.
But in
Well,
what
no,
sense?
because the game still has to function. So,
Yeah, I kind of
can't
wanted it to break though.
well, depending
Well,
on who you
there-
talk to, but
There was a helmet that broke.
There was.
Uh-huh.
The sky shattered.
Okay, this isn't the
So,
breaking of the
there's
game that
broken
I was
stuff.
hoping for. I
I'm
wanted
sure
to
there'll
walk
be
into
bugs.
Stormwind and not have a bunch of guards dive on me.
Okay.
Well, John, think about it this way. Half of Warcraft or World of Warcraft ago was the great neutral race that came, and how everybody was going to be neutral after that point.
Yeah,
So
I remember that.
we're there. We're like right there. We're on the tip.
They have been flirting with that idea for a long time.
Yeah, it's awkward though because we did a group Q&A at BlizzCon this year, and one of the devs who was there at that very much made it clear that that was not something that's on the table.
Well, then
They
they
basically
shouldn't
said
base
straight
their
up, like-
storyline around it. Like, not to
It's
go
odd,
too
yeah.
harsh on it, but like,
No, the
at-
the Bane and Jaina conversation, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
like,
it's
well,
Don't
I think it's why it's just usually a mistake to nosedive and putting the faction conflict thing front and center because people respond to it emotionally, right? It's like an easy way to push players' buttons, even people who aren't paying attention to the game. You get their attention and they want to check the game out because you're tugging at the heartstrings, but you're setting up something that you're never going to pay off.
yeah,
Like Spider-Man didn't actually kill the Vulture in this issue. He's going to be back next time. Like they just, I think it would have behooved them with marketing this expansion to push more on the side of like, hey, what's going on beneath the waves? Something's lurking, and we got to check it out, guys. Like maybe that would have been a bit. I think the pivot, and that was clearly like what they were setting up. If you were paying attention to
Yeah.
like all of the little bits of interstitial story, it
Which is
was
why
like,
there are all
oh
the
well, it's so
memes.
dumb that we're fighting each other while the world is collapsing and these villains are amassing their power. But the commercials are all the faction conflict, and that's not really a story because it's just the state of play that the players exist in. So
yeah.
I would like to see them just leave that in the background basically forever. It should just be a thing that's like, okay, you have classes and you have races and you have factions, and those are just gameplay elements, and keep the faction stuff in the background of the story. Don't make it the thing that you're trying to sell.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
they
but there's
always-
always. Oh, go
ahead.
ahead, Spencer.
Okay, I was gonna say they always advertise when they are advertising for any expansion what the initial storyline is, which is what got them in Pandaria. Like, remember when Pandaria was being advertised, everyone was like, "Pandas, this looks silly. I'm out. This isn't my thing." We're coming out of, them advertising big bosses every single time to suddenly pandas. And it was all, silly and happy, and people missed having that hook of something serious happening. And so they've always done that of advertising the initial first storyline, even though if they'd advertised, we're going to be fighting Garrosh and there's, going to be us invading Orgrimmar, it'd be crazy about hyping that up instead of hyping up pandas. That's not the route they went. They always went for the first initial storyline in those hypes and commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean the way that expansions are made and everything, there's always one zone that is like almost strictly, hey, the Horde and the Alliance are fighting in this zone for some reason, and you need to do a whole bunch of quests because we're in the same place. And then after that, it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. Like Legion was weirdly like that. I don't remember what was it. Stormheim? Yeah, Stormheim was like, okay, there's this amazing start to this Horde versus Alliance quest that's going on, and you've got to track down Sylvanas if you're on the Horde side, and you have to do stuff if you're on the Alliance side. And then after like the initial questing is the same until like the very end when all of a sudden, oh, we're doing stuff again, and then it's not going to get resolved at all. Okay.
Yeah, I think for me the big issue was always, and they've made a lot of promises. The most notorious is the dance studio, which you can argue whether or not that ever got delivered on, but
It is in the anniversary event.
so you can argue whether or not that ever got delivered on, but Blizzard always has ideas that just ultimately don't happen. But I feel like so much was said at the start of this expansion that uh, particularly didn't wind up playing out. You know, it was, we need to really finally solve Horde versus Alliance. They kind of didn't. They said there needs to be consequences for who wins and who loses. There kind of wasn't. You know, they flirted with the idea of choice and they said, "Well, we want your choices to matter." At least so far, they really don't. You know, and I think as a player, as somebody who's seen these games and played these games before, I've gotten pretty good at going, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think as a fan, I wanted it to happen. And I definitely feel like the narrative was a little disappointing in that regard. I would have loved to have seen a reveal where they're like, hey, factions are united. They finally did it. This is the end of the war. That means something. At the end of the day, it means it was the end of that expansion.
Do you think because it's called Warcraft that that's the biggest reason why? I know that, you know, just talking with devs and things like that, it's always, oh, we can't take the war out of Warcraft. Do you think if it was
That's
named...
a tagline.
I know, but it's kind of something that people like, you know, they die on that hill. It's,
So,
you know, we have to have the factions fighting always. It's because it's Warcraft.
I feel like there needs to be some sort of continuing conflict that stretches between expansions that needs to exist and be continuing and ongoing. And if they merged the Horde and Alliance into being friends and working together, I feel like they need to add another faction, another opposing force that continued through expansions, that was ever present through those expansions that we were battling against out in the world, that sort of situation. Because I just don't feel like it'd be as interesting a game without having that always sort of thread of conflict or competition that exists there, right? And I feel like joining them together can potentially remove that feeling of competition between the factions and can make the game a little bit less interesting. And you don't want to do that. So I'm for keeping them split just because I think that's the easiest way that makes the most sense to have this continuing ongoing thread line through expansions. I agree with Jason that bringing it forefront in expansions and then having it taper off inside others feels really weird, especially when it like alternates, which is pretty much what it does right now. But I do feel like if they ever resolve things between Horde and Alliance, they need to have something else be a threat that was present on Azeroth that was continuing through expansions. It wasn't just we wrap this up, everyone's happy. Oh no, we're being invaded again. We wrap that up, everyone's happy. Oh no, we're being invaded. Like, you need to have something that's continuing. It's not just ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Well, they did kind of have that starting with Pandaria, because yeah, the Pandaria storyline happened and everything. Then you take, go towards the end with Garrosh. Garrosh basically brings in the Iron Horde, which turns into Warlords Draenor, which, because of everything that happened with that with Gul'dan, moves right into Legion. And I mean, the whole Horde versus Alliance was kind of happening then, but that, like, during that entire time is kind of the weird thing that makes me feel like Horde versus Alliance shouldn't have been happening during those three expansions. Because you take Pandaria, the very first thing that happens is, this Jade statue crumbles, Shaw's released. We all kind of learn, hey, this isn't a good thing that's going on. We need to actually, take a step back, notice this, stop the infighting, kind of calm ourselves, just confront this evil inside us and everything like that. Then we go into, okay, we stop Garrosh. He was obviously a bad dude, horrible person, like, just to everybody. Threat taken care of, he gets released. Iron Horde happens, which, hey, tons of orcs that are different than the ones that we have invading Azeroth. Join forces, stop this, because that's just stupid. After we just learned what all this fighting and stuff can do, we jumped through a portal with our buddy Khadgar, who disappeared completely. Halfway through the story, it seems like, until he's like, have a ring. We take care of that. Take care of that threat. All of a sudden, Gul'dan is this huge threat. Legion starts invading Azeroth. Great. Why are we fighting at all during Legion invading? Because the Horde was going to die on a ridge and called for a retreat and Varian died? Pretty much. So then, after that, we go into our own order halls, rising above the conflict. then for some reason, oh, let's just break that entire unity apart and then start fighting each other again. And it's that whole throughput that actually worked really well for me narratively without having the Horde versus Alliance there. So I think it can be done, but it'd have to be consistent and actually stick.
I mean, the Varian thing was because from perception of Alliance, Sylvanas betrayed the Alliance, right? I mean, that made sense. And the thing inside this expansion with PFA, it was fighting over resources, right? It's all about fighting over Azerite was the big problem. We couldn't let, the Alliance couldn't let the Horde get too much Azerite because it's like a weapon of mass destruction. The Horde wanted to get it all before the Alliance got it, so then there was fighting over Azerite, and that was a big part of it too, with, you know, same time having a few vendettas left over from Varian existing there. So I feel like there was rationale behind why the conflicts were happening between the two factions. I just feel like the through line there isn't a through line. You talked about resolving Garrosh and then resolving Legion and then resolving, right? So again, I feel like the same thing of when we went to Argus and we found out that the Light and the Void have been fighting for, you know, eons against each other, and the people we met there have been fighting for hundreds of years against their opposing faction. Like, I feel like that again is a this versus that kind of situation. And you did have a Void person be friendly with a Light person, and that was, you know, a kind of a thing that worked because they were in a romantic relationship. But I feel like if you were going to have Alliance and Horde become friends, you just need to add, like, you need to have the Void invade Azeroth and be there for 8 years, right? Like, that just would have to be a thing.
See, I think you can do kind of both. I don't think you necessarily, I mean, you do need to tell a story. There needs to be a story there. I'm not going to say that can't exist, but I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, and this is probably what I would guess they would do, which is they're still going to fight, but it's not going to be the focus, because that's what Jason was saying. Like, we're just not going to focus on Horde versus Alliance. You're still not going to be able to go to Stormwind. There's still going to be hostilities, like, but officially, you know, the war is over, and it's just going to be kind of a weird game mechanic that exists in the background, and it's going to be what it's going to be.
And there will always be regional tensions, right? Like, the orcs will always be pushing into Ashenvale and cutting down the Night Elven forests, and the Night Elves will be raiding their lumber camps. And I mean, it creates texture and it creates opportunities to have these kind of little spots of conflict, and it makes the gameplay cool. So just don't sell it as the main, you know, narrative beat. It's we all know it's never going to be resolved.
Yeah.
You can't put that genie back in the bottle, and it does kind of go against what Warcraft is at its essence. It turns the entire setting on its head in a way that I don't know if it retains as much of its coolness if you just go, oh, well, actually everybody's just friends now and we fight bad guys. Like, yeah, if that was the way it was out of the box from day one, then that would be fine. But that's not the way the setting was ever established, even from Orcs and Humans. So it's I think the texture is important, but it's probably a mistake to market it as the main thing that you're doing, because it never is for very long.
Yeah, because I think, like you said, with the whole concept of you can't put that genie back in the bottle, it works the same way for pretending that the conflict's over. You know, like, I agree, like, you can say, oh man, Horde fighting Alliance is pivotal to this series. That's what we consider to be a big part of Warcraft. We consider it a cornerstone. That's what we want this game to be about. Well, then one thing your story should never do is resolve that conflict.
Right, don't even pretend to. It's just kind of cheap. It's a cheap kind of. I mean, I always compare, you know, Warcraft storytelling to like superhero comics, and
that's like, actually what I was just about to say. Is you maybe the joke's on us for thinking like, oh, this time the Joker's gonna stay in Arkham. You know, like
right. Or like Superman just revealed his identity to the world. Yeah, well, that's what the Superman story is going to be forever, right? Like, it's you know that stuff always goes in cycles, and that everything returns to status quo, because that's the way these big, expansive narratives with a lot of characters in them that are basically designed to go on forever and attract customers forever. This is the way they're set up to work.
But I do think.
Like oh no, I'm just going running with the superhero thing.
But
saying
I
a very
was
long
gonna say-
storyline, Dr. Octopus is back. What the hell?
I do think it's incredibly important that they take the right lessons from those, though. Especially if they are going to flirt with the idea of, like we said, if you're going to take Joker to Arkham, you better do it in a way where fans can't wait to see what he's going to do when he gets out. We know he's going to get out, so we can't wait to see what's going to happen. I think the difference for a lot of Warcraft players is while some people think that conflict is pivotal, a lot of people are like, great, we're doing this so we can see the same exact story again and wait a year for it to resolve. Oh,
Right.
here's the misunderstanding that sets it off. Oh, here's us finding the big bad. Oh, here's us working together to overcome it. And a lot of us, I think, are tired of that. And we're saying, okay, show us something new. And I think that's the lesson you need to take from superhero comics is, are you doing the superhero trope where we know it's cyclical and it's going to come back up and we're looking forward to it? Or are you doing the trope where you go, ugh, and you roll your eyes and you just wait for the other shoe to drop on the other end?
It's an interesting thought, though, of what is going to spark off the next one. I'm personally in the camp of I think it's going to be Taronda. I think Taronda is going to go to an extreme level, and that is going to spark the war again. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I would like to see Ilaria do it.
Interesting. What do you think Ilaria would, just because of, again, the Night Elf situation of what happened?
Part of that, but also being super duper void. And I don't know. I know that she's like, I can hold it back. I've got this under control. Everything's great. But I mean, and part of this is definitely because I want to see, that the Alliance is corruptible as well, because we've got plenty of Horde examples of this. And I know that a lot of the time the Alliance are framed as the good guys, but they have just as many skeletons in the closet as the Horde does.
I mean, that's true to an extent, but also, like, who's the biggest, baddest bad guy of all time in World of Warcraft?
Ragnaros.
Arthas Menethil, right?
Yeah.
Like Arthas is the baddest. He's the Darth Vader of
Yes,
Warcraft, and he was the Crown Prince of Lordaeron, who was corrupted by promises of power and destroyed everything he ever loved. Arthas is
That is true.
he's
but
the
that-
biggest example of that, and like Illidan also.
I was going to say, Illidan's the next one I would go to,
He was
right?
never in the
Yeah.
Alliance, though. Is the thing.
I
He's
get
an Alliance.
that, but-
He's from an Alliance race, but
Here's the big difference. That all happened in the prequels coming out next year, Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
So
oh, I've heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm interested.
I honestly I want to see something happen in World of Warcraft though, partially because I haven't played Warcraft 1 through 3. There's a ton of people out there who haven't. This may be the first chance that they're going to really be able to get in there and see the story and everything like that. I know a ton of history about it because, way back when, I hung out at John's house and he showed me all the cinematics from Warcraft, or, just from doing the show or reading books or anything like that. Yeah, I know the history about it. But in this entire 15 years that this game has been out, the Horde constantly has had characters fall, corruption happen, bad things happen. We've fought 2 of our war chiefs. At some point, flip it a little bit, turn it on its head, don't do another Joker and Arkham Asylum story, or maybe do it to the fact where, hey, Batman's going to Arkham because who's the crazy dude in a bat costume going around beating people up at night?
That is actually a storyline. I think it's White Knight, I think is what that one is.
White.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna turn into a comics podcast with you.
That's
Batman
perfectly
White
fine.
Knight.
Yeah.
I love Batman White Knight. It is
It's good.
super good
It's
comic.
real good.
And
It
the
is.
sequel's out or is coming out right now, and it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I love Batman White Knight.
Just had to throw that one in there because you used
Oh.
the example.
It's really good.
And hey, look at that. It's a different take on the story, isn't it?
It made me really like Joker.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess technically not Joker. It made me really like Jack Napier, but
Yeah.
whatever. Same thing.
So, anyways, I would like to see something along those lines happen. I still think that Anduin would be an incredibly great and tragic hero to take a fall. To the pressure got on him too much or something.
Well-
Gen is a perfect obvious choice of.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I think
Gen is the powder
I think
keg.
Taranda's the ridiculous one to me right now. Like she went
think
full
you're right.
dark-eyed Avenger.
Well, the thing about Tyrande is she's not wrong though. Like Gen is the powder keg, and he always has been a loose cannon. And
Yeah, but
that
he's
was
not
before-
wrong for going
that
after
was-
Sylvanas now, is he? Like
Well,
he's
his Sylvanas is one thing, but he was. I mean, Gen was over the top before he was a werewolf.
Sure,
You know,
yeah,
I mean, like
Mhm.
Gen was a loose cannon during the Second War, and Tyranda's been one of the protectors of Azeroth for millennia.
Yeah.
And when her people are in need, and she goes to the High King of the Alliance, and he says, "I can't be bothered with this right now." Well, she's got to take matters into her own hands. But I think Gen is the opportunity. He's an interesting character. He's complex, and he has this weird kind of surrogate father-son relationship with Anduin, and he's in his ear a lot, obviously. The Rin family are sort of these uncorruptible good guys, right? Like
Yeah.
King Lane straight to Varian to Anduin. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see them going the path of like, oh well, actually Anduin is vulnerable to what I mean. It could be, but I think they sort of like to have the that line to be these sort of heroic characters. Even though
Yeah.
Varian was kind of edgy, he had some weird stuff going on with his anger management problems and getting he had amnesia, and he was a barbarian gladiator type
Yeah.
guy for a while, and then they split his personality into a different body. And I mean, Varian had it rough,
As one
but
does.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean
Just-
that would take
just
a toll on
WoW stuff.
anybody, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I mean the Gen kind of causing this rift in the Alliance leadership is something they've been seeding for years now. So I would imagine that they'll pivot on that at some point, and
I
he'll.
mean, it'd be great if Gen and Tyrande just kind of like splintered off. Took
Yeah, I
a
expect
faction of them or
something
something.
like that at some point. Yeah, like Gen's sort of he lights he lights the match on the Night Elves and the Worgens, sort of being at odds with Stormwind. And it's when the Worgen were brought into the Alliance in the story, it was the Night Elves who were instrumental in making that happen. They provided them with a place to live initially, and Varian and Stormwind didn't want them, and they had some old hard feelings from the Second War and beyond, when Gen walled his people off from the rest of human society. So I mean, that story has been percolating for literally, what year is it? It's about to be 2020. So this is a story that's been being told since about 1996. So
was this pre or post Panda?
Jeez, this is
Pre-Panda.
BP. This is
BP.
before Panda.
It's before
we're,
Panda.
We're
BP.
going
Yeah.
BP.
BP.
Yeah.
I think I like the.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the BP.
Yeah.
It's probably
go
a
with the
good
P-
call.
You can go with the PP if you like it.
Depends. Depends on
Yeah,
when.
some people. Everybody has their things. But so something that's kind of interesting too is, are we going, or if this powder keg does get blown up with Tyrande and Gen, or whoever, is it going to be, oh, I hate the Horde, or oh, I hated Sylvanas? Because if you look at what happened with Jaina, it wasn't a I hate Garrosh, it was the Horde has to die, and then she kind of pulled back. Gen has such a hate for Sylvanas. Is it just going to kind of stick with her, or is that going to spread to the entirety of the Horde? Tyrande, I think, out of everybody, has the more legitimate hate for us
The
as a
Horde.
people.
Yeah.
Well,
But
yeah, I
that's what-
mean,
that's-
it goes back a long time to the Orgrimmar being established sort of on the outskirts of Night Elven forests and kind of industrializing it, right? And then Garrosh's military adventurism into Ashenvale during the Cataclysm timeline, and then obviously what happened in this expansion. So, and the Night Elves and the Taurens sort of had this this working relationship, if you will, for a long time. As being some of the oldest inhabitants of what we know of Azeroth, right, and sort of these stewards of Kalimdor. And so again, Tyranda's what 10,000 35 years old or something at this
Yeah.
point, right? I don't know exactly how old she's supposed to be, but she's like stewarded her people through all these, horrific cataclysmic events in the history of Azeroth, well before any of the young races even really existed. And yeah, so you'd have to think that she's got plenty of reasons to want to. I mean, I don't want to go so far as to say isolate her people, but
I think she wants to safeguard them, and that's why I almost feel like her becoming this Avenger is something where she's like, my way of safeguarding my people is to take back my land and kill everyone in the way. And if anyone tries to stop me, they're going down too. And like that will be her.
Like think of how much. I mean, you could go play Classic now. Go log into Classic and run around in Darkshore and Ashenvale, and then do it in the live game. And like obviously time in WoW moves at a glacial pace, right, for a variety of reasons. But over the 15 years the game's been out, like the Night Elves have suffered severe losses in northwestern Kalimdor, where they live, at least where they live post Sundering, right? Like they already got displaced from that event, and then they've just done nothing but lose their forests and lose their people to this never-ending war and skirmishes and whatever. And it's a little bit weird that it's kind of turned out that way for this race of people that's sort of the stewards of the entire planet for so long. And I mean, all of this is after they cashed in their immortality and blew up Nordrassil in order to win the Third War, right? Like they made a huge sacrifice for the safety of the planet, only to then just continue to get dumped on for the next 15 years of the story.
Yeah. Well, she also already, I mean, that was so well thought out. I feel bad just saying this and making it so simple. She already sucked. Like, Legion, I'm still mad at Tyrande just because of her attitude. You're helping Malfurion, you're working with him for so long, he gets taken, and then she's immediately like, I should kill you where you stand, Horde. And you're like, I was helping him. And she's like, I don't trust you. It's like, I was helping the one guy that you care about, and you're going to be hostile towards me? Stop being awful, Tyrande. And I already know how this goes. You're not going to do anything to help along the way. Let me ride on your cat. That's about as helpful as you get. Guess what? I got 8 of them.
It's still a pretty good cat, though. I mean,
It is cat.
For what it's worth.
Yeah, that's true. It's not bad.
I don't know. You think Malfurion will just fall right in line?
I think Tyrande kills Malfurion.
Ooh.
What?
Wow, that's
That'd be crazy.
That would be
In
crazy.
his dreams.
Man.
I probably don't think that actually happens, because to me that was me literally saying like what would be the most shocking thing that could happen. But sometimes the writer's room, you got to imagine somebody's like, what if we did the most shocking thing?
Yeah.
And that would certainly be it, and it is possible whenever you have somebody who is an agent of peace and understanding, and you have somebody that's hell-bent on vengeance. When you introduce those two elements, the most common trope in storytelling is that hatred burns up the people they care about. So it could happen.
I will say, though, it would be like not because of the, defining her as, oh, she killed Malfurion. It would actually be giving her so much more of a personality than she has because of Malfurion. Like, I don't know. I think that she would be so much more of a great character if he wasn't around.
She's. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, continue.
Okay, just for a long time, it's basically, oh yeah, Malfurion's sleeping right now, and then it was, okay, well, let's go save him from, the nightmare, and then it's, oh no, Malfurion, you got hit in the back with an axe. I'm totally simplifying this, but
I mean, yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think she's a way more interesting character than he is this expansion, way more. When she went and did the ceremony that could kill her to, become the agent of vengeance of her people, that to me was like, okay, she's now, and all Malfurion did is just fall in line. Like he was no longer even part of that forefront storyline. They had the cinematic where like he roots an orc, and she like sweeps in and like kills everybody, and you're like, okay, yeah, he did a cool thing where he rooted the orc and pulled him into the ground. That was cool, but Like she's just this agent of vengeance. Like she's way more interesting a character at the moment.
That said, I do think WoW is running into a problem where they are considering characters only interesting if something tragic happens to them and they get really angry about it and
True.
turn into something as a result. I mean, it's what they did with Jaina. It's ultimately very long form what they did with Sylvanas. Certainly seems to be the direction they're going with Tyrande. You can make arguments that it even crosses games. That's the kind of thing they've done with Kerrigan. Like, you know, it's sort of a common trope for them. And I get it. It's hard to make people root for the person that's the proponent of peace and understanding and good. I mean, we're all sitting here talking about how boring as shit Malfurion is. And there's a reason. It's because he's level-headed, he's thoughtful, he's, you know, extremely powerful, but he holds that power back because he's got control of his feelings. And if he suddenly...
Superman.
If he suddenly, to use the wrestling parlance, turned heel and started murdering everybody, we would be like, wow, look at Malfurion go. He's suddenly the most interesting character.
Well, it's why I'm interested to see if Tyrande is the powder keg that sets this off, because he will follow her. I don't think he will try and hold her back. I think he will support her in safeguarding his people. And I think it'll be a really interesting thing if this whole powder keg gets set off. She goes in and he goes in after her, and you just watch this like rain of death go through that zone as they reclaim, you know, Darkshore and Teldrassil and all that. Like, I think that would be bizarre to have the rest of the Alliance looking back at this and being like, what just happened? What atrocity just happened while we were over here doing this other thing, right? Like, holy man.
I mean, there is a reason why the only time I ever got interested in reading anything Superman was in the Injustice comics.
Man. Speaking of, Injustice is also really good. Well, we're gonna just keep
It is.
giving
Well, I mean, I
comic
think
recommendals.
what it kind of
How
comes
about the
down to
Ultimates? The Ultimates was good too. I really
Oh yeah, Ultimates was really good.
at least the first two. Don't
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
Ultimates 3
Yeah,
check
No,
out.
I agree.
but-
I agree. Yeah. The original. Yeah, the first ones.
I mean, I think it bears mentioning that, you know, they have to make this work for a video game, and there are kind of like well-defined parameters in which a video game works, and you need like clear conflict in order to. I mean, like video games in general, a game like WoW, an MMORPG, is based around, you know, fighting, overcoming challenging foes in combat, right? Like combat is intrinsic to the gameplay systems. So you need to have just reasons to have conflicts, and if they're not the most high-minded, like well-written literary masterpieces of high fantasy that you can come up with, well, is the game fun? And that's, you know, at the end of the day, I think that's really the mission. And it's like, well, let's have some cool window dressing around trying to make the game fun. And it's, you know, there are so many characters that are evocative and cool, and like the art style is great, and you want to exist in this world. You want to have a character in it and have stakes in it, right? So it's easy to kind of gravitate towards certain parts of the narrative, but I think it's really not the main thing that drives your moment to moment gameplay. So I think if WoW was like a point and click adventure game, then I think the story would be a lot different. But it has to serve the type of game that they're making.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I will say we have seen examples of them doing it right and breaking that mold. I would say Princess Talanji is a great example of a character that had every reason that she could have gone down the same road they're walking with these other characters, and has just kind of remained a stalwart and good leader on top of it, and is one of my favorite characters from this expansion. I will say WoW has a bad habit of breaking up with the things they loved as soon as we're outside of the expansion. They've gotten better at it. We're certainly seeing, you know, more connections to Suramar and the characters developed there and all of that carrying into this expansion, but it would bum me out if come next expansion it's like, Princess Talanji? Who's that? I don't know. She's on a pyramid somewhere. We're never going to see from her again. Or did what they did with Yrel, where they introduce a really cool character, and then the same thing happens to her, but we don't really get to see it, and it's just in a story for the Horde to enjoy, and it's like, what happened here? So, I don't know. I think there's ways to do it. I just think WoW... I wouldn't mind WoW focusing more, not to say they need to copy Final Fantasy, but maybe focus more on letting the story be yours and not making the plot development of its characters as important. Let the fact that they're just these characters matter, and your story is what really the focus is on.
I will say that there was one zone that really wasn't focused on the combat. That was DP, or Deering Panda, and that was Valley of the Four Winds.
Oh, I love Valley of the Four Winds. It's my favorite.
It was a great zone. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a training montage. There's farming, and you're learning about the culture.
I love
it's
Valley of the
possible.
Four Winds. I'm just going to repeat it. And
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Well, anyways, guys, thank you very much for joining us this week. It definitely turned into a conversation that I had no idea was going to happen. I think it worked out really well.
That's how this show works. That's what I
It
expect
is.
when I come on here with you guys. Is I don't want to know what's going to happen. We're just going to let it take its course.
Exactly. I was going to be all like, hey, I got this goal done. What are you guys trying to do before the next patch? But now we know.
Brutosaur, man, Brutosaur. That's on my
Oh.
list.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Seriously, very good luck.
I'm at 3.6 mil is where I'm at now. So
Nice.
I got my
We're getting there. We're
Maghar,
getting
my
there.
Maghar heritage armor, so I'm pretty
Very
much
cool.
done.
There you go.
So,
All right.
yeah,
Look at that.
looking like Grom Hellscream.
Nice. Spencer, before you actually buy that Brutosaur, make sure you go pick up Francois if you haven't yet.
Oh, I already
It's
have.
the-
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the
cool.
million gold chicken. Yeah.
That costs nothing as long
Yep.
as you have 1,000,000 gold.
Jingle that large coin purse and bring the chicken over.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But until next time we have you guys on, Spencer, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey or on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. And Jason and I both do another podcast called The Starting Zone, which is a World of Warcraft podcast where we cover what's happening this coming week in World of Warcraft and try and get you guys to log in and check it out as to what's going on in game right now.
Very cool. Jason, how about you? Where can people find you?
Well, the best place to find me is over on Twitter. You can find me there at Shieldwald, and you can also find me streaming WoW 4, sometimes 5 nights a week over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald. Just still raiding Eternal Palace right up to the bitter end and doing keystones and doing a lot of, well, probably not as much Korax Revenge as we were doing before we had the Maghar Heritage, but still, whatever we're doing, it's over there.
Very cool. John, how about you? If people are looking for you, how can they track you down?
Best way to find me, follow me on Twitter at John_Jagger. I'll let you know where I'll be. You can catch me on this show, obviously. You can catch me talking about video games and Star Wars music genres on Core, which is a sort of video game related podcast these days. And you can catch me playing Dungeons and Dragons on There Will Be Dungeons, which is a very fun game and is going places. We do that live Sunday, and we're about to dive into the world of M Sports, become M fighting champions, marionette fighting champions, big smash 'em fight champions.
Hey, John, you know what I like about that show most recently?
What?
Nothing.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nothing's pretty great.
I think so. She definitely has a way with words.
Absolutely. Ben, where can people find you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm at Ben Bumhofer. I do a show where I geek out about a whole bunch of stuff with the Ludro. It's called Box Fort. I am also on a Dungeons and Dragons show where we play the game. That is called +5 to Hit. And if you want to hear people just kind of talking about Dungeons and Dragons, check out DN Discussions. I do that one with Ryan Reeder. This show, though, Azeroth Roundtable, you might have heard of it before. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, or the ever-popular AzerothRoundtable.com. If you scroll through a lot of the old episodes, you find that we've been getting a lot of spam comments that I delete.
Nice.
Also,
fun.
on AzerothRoundtable.com, yeah, it's weird. The comments are like descriptions of other episodes as a comment. I
Great.
don't get it.
We
It's
should
really
we should disable comments.
Oh no, it's caught. They're all caught by the spam filter, and I just deleted them all.
Yeah, but I mean just in general.
Great. Yeah, people do leave comments there, and I always let them through if they're actual legitimate. But
Okay.
anyways, that would be on AzerothRoundtable.com, which also does have a link to our Discord if you want to join us there. Just to chat about random things and whatnot. Also, if you want to find out when we're streaming on twitch.tv/AzerothRT, make sure to check us out on Twitter, which is @AzerothRT.
That's right. Hey, everybody. This is the end of the show. This is the part of the show where I tell you, go to patreon.com/AzerothRT. You can become a patron. You can help us out. You can help us make this. You can feel like a producer. The kind of producer that really doesn't get to give us any feedback, but does get to give us money. So a big thank you to all our patrons, and a special thank you to the Murloc Club. That is Aaron, Blixie the Rogue, Brandon O, Jesse O, Caleb M, Kilroy Tastic, Sarah M, and Taryn. Thank you so much for being patrons. And I had to go back because I realized that I've been saying Blixie the Rogue each week, and I didn't actually know that's what it said. I just assumed it. And turns out I was right. So there we go. Ben, you are. How long can I make Ben hold this pose? Not long. I'll let him do it. Okay, Ben, do your thing. Best one.
Thanks. I'm getting close to cough time. Anyways, Spencer, Jason, again, thank you very much for joining us. Chat room, thank you for chatting as much as you did, and I'm sorry we didn't acknowledge you at all, but we saw that scrolling. Thank you. And John, until next week, I hope you have a fantastic, stress-free week. Good luck with that. And everybody else, until next time, be good to each other.